Welcome to RECO12. My name is Justin, and I am a child of an all-powerful and all-loving God and a recovering addict, and am blessed to be the host of this meeting and podcast. RECO12 is an organization with the mission of learning and sharing the similarities of addictions of all kinds and gaining and sharing tools and hope from others who are walking a similar path. We come together from all places, faiths, and backgrounds to gain tools and hope from others who are walking this path. Speakers from our past meetings have represented so many fellowships, addictions, and afflictions, and we look forward to continuing to add to the diversity of speakers and backgrounds. I'm excited about today's speaker and topic. It's a very timely one for me in my own life. Priya P will be speaking on facing fear with faith, and we'll get to her and her message here in just a minute, but first a few items of business and some announcements. Launching on March 1st of this year, just in about a week, is a new open share meeting called RECO12 Shares. All are welcome to record a solution-based share that will be uploaded into short 20-minute recorded share-only recovery meetings available in podcast format anytime, anywhere. To learn more and to record a share of your own, please visit www.reco12.com/shares or click on the link in the show notes that I'll put in there and in the chat of the live meeting and learn more about it there. RECO12 is a self-supporting service, and we appreciate your help in keeping us working our 12th step in this manner. We gratefully accept one-time contributions through PayPal and Venmo through the links that will be in the chat and in the show notes. We also have started a new monthly subscription program called RECO12 Spearheads. If you would like to become a RECO12 Spearhead and help spearhead any of the RECO12 family of recovery resources, please join in by exploring the links in the chat and the show notes that will be there soon. We look forward each week to receiving from the light reflected from our speakers. That light inspires hope, meaning, worth, and growth in us, the listening audience. Now I'll introduce our guest speaker for today, another RECO12 first-time speaker, Priya P. Priya P is a grateful addict who identifies as a codependent, Al-anon and SLAA anorexic, and joined the rooms almost 3 years ago. She has been given a new life through the gift of recovery and is continuously humbled by the journey of fellowship and as more and more is revealed in her divine timing. Spiritual principles of faith, trust in infinite God over our finite selves, and acceptance are her current recovery focus. Priya, take it away. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Justin. Hi, everyone. I'm Priya. I'm a grateful addict. I consider myself a codependent, Al-anon, my primary fellowships, also learning about my SLAA anorexia, among other things. More is being revealed with time. And I wanted to start with just the miracle of being here on this podcast, facing fear of speaking in public, sharing my story, being vulnerable. That is a miracle, just being here. And I wanted to start with something that I was preparing for this. I read in the chapter, I use the big book of AA for my recovery as my primary tool for codependency, which is my thinking. I just replaced drinking with thinking. And it read in the chapter, The Man Who Mastered Fear. Some of the things that used to stop me in my tracks from fear still make me nervous in the anticipation of their doing. But once I kick myself into doing them, nervousness disappears and I enjoy myself. So that is like a present experience that I'm feeling right now, filled with nerves, but I know I enjoy this. And just by saying that out loud, I face it. So I'm grateful that that's something I feel worthy enough that I have something to share from my creator's view, that I have worth, I have a story that's important to be heard, and that is a miracle. The second thing I wanted to share was just some gratitude. One, for this podcast. I have been listening to this podcast for over a year now, since I was introduced to it, and I find myself, whether it's late nights where I can't sleep or early mornings where I'm up, and I am not able to calm myself with meditation, I listen to the speakers in this podcast, and they help soothe that, that voice inside my head. So super grateful to be here, and for the speakers and for Justin and this space. And then for my sponsor, who gently suggested that I do this podcast as a way to grow my program. And that is also me listening to directions from those that I want what they have. And lastly, for the home group that I came into fellowship through, it's the Women's CODA meeting that we use the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's part of the Spiritual Gangsters Fellowship. So I'm grateful for all those people that are here supporting, listening, and just cheering me on and my recovery. And then I wanted to share a desire that I have. That's something that I've learned is it's a good part of revealing myself of like, what do I wish? What is my heart desire? What does my higher power desire through me? And for me, that's to see more people that look like me in fellowship, whether it's people from South Asian background. I'm from India. My parents are from India. I grew up in North America. Or whether it's mothers or, young people. What fellowship has taught me is that I can relate to stories from people that look in any form or shape or size. We all have the same affliction, and that has really connected me to people. And at the same time, I noticed there's so many people that look like me that are not in my current fellowship. So I would hope that my story would inspire anyone that may feel they don't belong because they may not look a certain way, but maybe they would feel more welcome by seeing me here. So with that, I wanted to get started with, I have some notes here because I tend to stray. So I will hold these on, but allow higher power to come through me and trust that what I share will help someone. And that is, the topic of facing fear with faith. And when I thought about this topic months ago, I thought, and we had discussed this, this would be in months. I'm like, oh, by then I will really understand how to address my fear with faith because here's all the stuff I'm doing. And the beauty of this is for myself, fear is something that is a part of me. It follows me. It is in my makeup. So, and in the book, there's something that addiction and fear really come hand in hand. And what I mean by that is there's the big fears that I can say are fears, but there's fears that I have no control over. It's the fears that are in my nightmares. They're in my subconscious. I have these terrors, night terrors, dreams that feel real. There's anxiety, like I could be diagnosed as like an anxious person. There's real threats. There's real things to be afraid of. And then there's like perceived threats. So all to say that fear has been a part of my life and continues to be a part of my life. That's not going away. I think it's an acceptance of the fact that fear is there and only a power greater than myself can help me with that fear because I've tried all the things that normal people can do with fear, whether it's getting help from other human powers, talking about it, therapy, all the things. And not to say that these don't help, but only a power greater than myself can truly remove this fear for me. And then to talk about how I use the step work to help me with these fears. Fear isn't a part of every step addressing it. So first, the very clear example of removing fear is step 4, doing a fear inventory. I think that's a clear place where I can put my fears on paper and make them smaller. So if I can write it down and name it, I've already done more than I used to pre-recovery, which was just like it sitting in my head and stewing and not even knowing or naming it. And so I think that is one tool that's really provided a lot of support for me. And then the second part of that, step 5, sharing it with another, making it visible, not just putting it on paper, but putting it out in the universe to someone else who can understand, relate, and help me seek the next step in solving that. And then step 6 of being entirely ready to have this removed from me. Fear has provided personality and safety for me, I realized through doing my step step work with my sponsor. It became kind of my persona. She told me jokingly once, like, you were like a little bird when you first came in, and we just wanted to take care of you. And that was like a very safe place for me to be, is like, oh, like, poor me, that mentality. And so I had to outgrow that. I had to realize that didn't feel good anymore. And that takes time for me to slowly have this fear removed from me entirely. And so that's a continuous process. And then humbly asking God to remove it. I can't remove it myself. I can ask and then ask for it to be removed. And then the amends, making amends to myself and to others for when I am in fear, and seeing what has cost me and cost the people in my life. When I act in fear, I'm not trusting that the universe, the God and other people to be able to show up. I'm controlling situations, trying to manage things because I'm afraid to get hurt, to be seen, whatever it is. It creates the codependent relationship that I was very familiar with. So that's kind of the fear side of it. And then I wanted to speak about the faith side, because only faith can really be something that can be a power that can outmatch how large the fear is in my life, and how pervasive it is. It is a felt experience for me. It's tension in my body. It's tightness. It's, my stomach, like, not feeling settled. It's my head being so busy that I can't focus. So it's a really full-bodied experience for me. And it's really uncomfortable and it's really painful. And I have to really see that, how much I suffer to be willing to get help. And so that's kind of the gift, to be able to have that awareness. And when it comes to faith, I think the tool in the program of Step 11 sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood it, praying only for knowledge of its will for us and the power to carry that out. That has been, prayer and meditation have always in some form been a part of my life, but through the 12-step program, it's an active process, and it's driven from here, inside of me, not outside of me. Before it was, gotta find it, go to the right institution, person, and get it. And that's why the line in the book, that deep down within every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. God was as much a fact as we were. So connecting with this statement, trusting it, having faith that that's true, because it is an inner truth that I do feel. I know it's there. I know it's always been there. And that's probably been the most fun part of recovery for me, is that I get to connect to that. And I get to do it in a way that's uniquely mine. And that's a creative, imaginative process for me. There's no right answers. There's no one that can tell me. I can learn and listen from other people's and their experience, but it's an inner feeling again. So just to kind of share and open up in what I've experienced or how I've come to that, it's really thinking of what's a protecting figure for me, what's a nurturing figure, what's a wisdom figure, and feeling into that during prayer and meditation, and doing that as much as I can, allowing people into that idea. So for me, a protector is like a white tiger, like the energy of that tiger is around me, and I can literally feel into that energy. And that's faith and something greater than myself, but it's in my head. It's an imaginative idea. But then when I'm in situations of fear, I can close my eyes and I have a physical, tangible thing that I can connect to. So that's one example of how I use prayer and meditation in step 11 to develop a direct connection to my higher power in different ways. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is doing things anyway. So the idea of acting as if. So acting as if I was courageous and had faith, because there's a lot of times I don't feel recovered. I don't feel faithful. I don't feel like, all the spiritual principles that I want to be. And that's okay. I'm learning that that's okay for me. I am a human, and I turn those over through my practice of step 10. I don't feel this. And the more I do, that's the miracle bit. The more I'm just honest and I say, don't feel this. I'm not like this. But then I go back to, what am I doing well? What did I do well? And there's a million things that I'm doing well. It's like part of my mindset and my disease is always looking at the negative, looking what I didn't do. But I have the opportunity to see I'm working a program. I've prioritized recovery in my life over anything. And just by doing that, just by following the steps, there's something I'm doing right. And that's enough. So kind of just acting as if I'm courageous and I have faith, and I'm able to do that. And in that same chapter that I referred to, the chapter of Man Who Fast Mastered Fear, it says that I'm apt to get into quite an uproar a day or before starting, but I do start. And once I start, I have a swell time. So it's in that same reference of, I will have the feelings. I'm going to be anxious. I'm going to be restless. I'm going to be irritable. But all I got to do is just start and do something, and I will have a good time. And I just have to keep reminding myself that. And if I can't, that's why I am a part of fellowship. I don't have to keep it all on myself to do it. I have other people to remind me. When I can't remind myself, I can hear it in a meeting, I can hear it on a podcast, I can hear it in so many ways. And also I can hear it in my life, whether it's my children that are causing me to feel something that's bothering me. It's a reminder that, something is missed, something needs to be changed. And I have the power to do that by surrendering and allowing my higher power to step in and relax. The other point I wanted to talk about was keeping it simple. A part of my mind is making things complex and getting lost in the weeds of life, and then feeling overwhelmed and anxious. Kind of becomes a part of my cycle. It's like, take on a lot, get lost, then get overwhelmed, anxious. And so one thing that I'm learning is to have faith that I'm doing enough and that less is more. Like, I really don't have to do much. Like before, I think I was trying to do so much to feel okay. And it's like that, I just had it twisted in my mind. It's like, I just do what's in front of me. I do less and I do it better. And I don't have to have a busy life. I just have to have a life that's centered and grounded. And the life that I desire will come because I can feel good in what I'm doing. So I think that's been an important principle that I wanted to reflect on, because I feel it's been an important part of me being able to tap into my faith, because it's given me the space and the time to do that. Having that blank space in my day and my life, pre-recovery, it felt like impossible. And my mind can rationalize many reasons why I can't do that. But I realize it's a choice, what I take on and what I don't. So that has been an important part of my recovery as well. And then lastly, as I was preparing for this, I read the chapter on fear with my sponsee. And as we were talking about it and reflecting on our fears, I think she said something about how fear is a gift. And I really, in that moment, realized it is a gift. I have a fearful personality. That's just, it feels like this is what I was born like, just always anxious. And I always thought it was something that I needed to overcome. Like, this is a bad thing. Like, I can't be this way. It's, this is my problem. And now I see it's like, it's the gift that helps me be God reliant instead of self reliant, because I know that the only thing that can overcome it is a connection to a higher power. So if I'm feeling that fear, if I'm feeling that tension, I know that's like an indicator. Okay, go to my higher power. And how can I do that? It's there's so many tools. It's the whole steps. Any of them I can do, and I can just get connected. But that's it. It's, if I didn't have that fear, I would think I was recovered and I would just go back to the way I was. So the fact that it's continuously there and that it's most likely never going to go away, I was just realizing like that's a gift. And I don't like the feeling. And that's the part of that I'm learning to soften around, is when I feel that tension and I feel that discomfort, it's like, how can I be my higher power to that? And that's, what would my higher power say? It's like, okay, you're feeling that. That doesn't feel good. But here, I'm here. I can connect with you. And just breathing through it, one thing at a time, the next right action, and it moves through. Just like this, podcast, the fear is there. Am I going to say the right thing? Is this helpful? But I can just be here and trust that higher power is in this room, is in my life, and that is enough. There's nothing else to do except to be, and to be okay, accepting with what is. And so just to end, I just wanted to bring it back to all of the listeners, and just to ask you, what is that current fear that comes to mind for you right now? And how can you bring your faith to it? How can you use it as a gift? How can you write it out, put it on paper so that it becomes smaller? How can you share it with another that feels helpful and who would understand your fear? And how can you truly pray and ask God to remove it? And also act as if it's been removed, and then see what happens. And then additionally, what could you do to keep things simple so that you have more space and time to build that faith? So those are questions that I wanted to share and bring to light, as they've been really helpful for me. And it's been really helpful to be able to even reflect on this and see that, that I am doing it well. I am facing my fears. If I look in my life, there are things I would have never imagined being able to do, and they're happening, and not in my timing, but they're happening. And if I keep remembering that, and I look back with that bird's eye view, look at all the things, all the fears that I've overcome, then I have the courage to use that energy to deal with that energy. The fear of today is like, not comparable. Like, and that's the gift. Like, I can go into today with, like, I have so much ability because I haven't done anything on my own. It's been with this universe that's provided so much. And that's why bringing it back to the principles of gratitude, of like what I'm doing well, and what I truly ask God for my heart, what's important to me, are so important because they bring me back into acceptance with this moment that there's a lot of good. There's a lot of things that we're doing well. And there's a lot of people, spirits, energies supporting all the goodness. And that what I desire from my heart, from my higher power's desire, is good. And so the more I share that and allow it to be visible and to be seen, the more I'm like trusting and have faith in the universe. And it's less on me. So it's kind of a great place to be. And I think that's all I have to share. And thank you so much, Justin, and everyone who's listening.
Thank you so much, Priya. Fantastic. And I love how you brought it back there at the end. Hey, audience, here's some questions for you. Reflect on this. Ask yourself, ask your higher power what you can do to apply these principles, because principles learned and not applied really do nothing for me or anybody else. So thank you for bringing those questions back in here. A reminder to our live audience, if you have questions for Priya, please type them in the Q&A link at the bottom of your Zoom window. We'll get to those. We've got several that have come in already, and we'll get to as many as we can. I'd like to start off real quick, Priya, with a question about the concept of, faking it till you make it, acting as if. That was something that for most of my life, I've thought, man, I don't want to do that. I do that all day long. I'm faking it because I'm hiding what I think I really am from everybody else. How do you twist that concept or change it so that it's a positive rather than I'm hiding from everybody else? How do you do that in your life?
Thank you, Justin. I really relate to that, where there was a lot of times in my past where acting as if meant just like, push through it, act as if like, stage fright. I'm not scared. I got this. It's like almost a denial of what truly is. But I think acting as if is more from a place of acting as if I was protected by my higher power. As if I think it's from a place of God led versus me led. I'm just going to grab a sip of water. So I think it comes from a softer place for me, where it's not like a pushing through, but admitting. I have to admit it. So there's a vulnerability there. There's not an ego or like an arrogance that I feel like I could remember. It's like I have an interview. I'm going to act as if I know what I'm saying. That's like I have to prove something. But I think now I see it as like, it says like a prayer in there. It's like, I really don't want to be afraid of this opportunity. Give me the strength to act courageous, and then allow versus push for me is like an energy that I connect with. It's like, how would I be if I was courageous? And it comes from a different place. So I don't know if that makes sense.
That does make sense. And thank you for saying that. I love that. Allow rather than force, or allow rather than push it on myself. Love it. All right. We'll get to these questions from our live audience. First one's from an anonymous attendee who says, fear feels very loud and overwhelming, while faith often feels quiet or subtle. How do I get to faith when it gets drowned out by the intensity and noise of fear?
I so relate to that. Thank you for that question. Yeah, my fear is really loud and it takes over. It really like grips my body. And I think I allow the fear too. I address it and I remind myself that it is a gift. It's teaching me something and it was important at some point in my life. So it's not to be ignored. And just like soften to myself that it's there, but my faith is bigger. It's might be quieter now, but through practices like two-way prayer, I know it says it in the script there that like it's a still small voice. So it's small in us as starting on this path for me. So just knowing that the voice is small, it's, you know, sometimes in a room, it's usually the softest voice that isn't heard, that, you know, we're learning to hear all the voices. So in our world, it's like listening to the softest voices, but in our hearts and our bodies, also listening to that softest voice, I think is a practice. Because it's true, the fear is like that loud person in the room saying, this is what we do, but we really need to hear everyone.
Yeah, thank you. All right. It is so hard to hear that still small voice, but good stuff. All right. Next question from another anonymous attendee. You mentioned about doing less. I'm still feeling really overwhelmed and having a tough time slowing down, and recovery is becoming my life. It feels like a full-time job with no room for anything else, and I feel exhausted. Any thoughts on that? How does that relate to this, and how can you talk on that, Priya?
Yeah, from my personal experience, I do think that that balancing of recovery with life has been a struggle for me. It's like I could join a million programs and do recovery all the time, but I have responsibilities and other things I need to do. And I think I've learned that that's also a part of my life, and that's my program. It's like I'm a mother of small children, and I'm like, this is my temple. Like, this is my, like, you know, my connection to conscious. This is my higher power in a way, is like how I show up in this thing, which I can't not do and go to a meeting. And I don't have to juggle it all. I have to just surrender that I can't, there's no way it has to look. So that I can do step 1 through 12 while I am doing my responsibilities and my jobs. I don't have to do it by attending 12 meetings. There's no number, there's no time allocation with recovery. It's more working the steps, and those can be done in any part of your life, I feel.
Yeah, I like that. You know, in my time of life right now, I have more time to devote to recovery, to my stuff. But, you know, 10 years ago, well, I wasn't working recovery 10 years ago, but if I was, I did not have the time to do it with young kids, with things that were going on in my life. Time and place, time and season. Love it. Thank you. All right. Next question comes from Sam. Sam says, I love hearing about your fears that so align with my own, and hearing you simply accept and move forward past that fear. I will try to be more active with addressing my fears as you've suggested. Thank you for your vulnerability. I've learned a lot from your example. Now the question, could you please explain how you balance emotions and children that perfectly push buttons?
I really appreciate that question, because that has probably been, and my sponsor says, like, my children are my sponsors, and they're really the toughest sponsors that I have. I really prefer my chosen sponsor to these chosen sponsors. And they really do push my buttons, and they are teaching me that, like, this is a lifelong process. I can't expect to have it figured out today. And all I can do is be grateful that I'm building awareness of these triggers or these fears that come out through daily interactions, like 20 times a day interactions that are giving me more and more things to turn over. Like, it's just, you know, my step 10s are filled with things that happen in these, you know, intimate relationships. And that's where usually our recovery grows the most. So I have to be grateful for it. And I just have to allow, and it's a good reminder to me that it's just, that doesn't have to be done and perfect in any way.
Yeah, thank you for walking through that. I love that. You know, I like my chosen sponsor better than I like my kids who are my sponsors. I totally identify with that. I'm okay being called out by my sponsor, but being called out by my kids is sometimes a little bit hard to take. All right. Next question is from Lids. Oh, Lids, who is a past guest speaker here on RECO12. Happy to have you here, Lids. Lids says, Priya, you are an angel. Thank you for your service and letting us witness your miracle. If you could say anything to yourself on your first day in the rooms or whenever you were the most scared, what would you say to yourself?
I love that question. Thank you, Liz. I'd say you are going to be surprised by the things that you'll be able to do and the experiences that you'll be able to have with recovery, along with recovery than before. And that you're always just at the beginning, like you don't know. It's going to be better than your wildest dreams. And yet, you may not even realize it until you take those moments and people remind you of it. And that it's such a gift. It's such a gift. And how people said to me, you're home. You know, those words in the meetings that like, you're home and you're never going to be lonely again.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. You know, a reminder to our live audience here real quick. If you have questions for Priya, please type them in the Q&A link at the bottom of your Zoom window. We'll get to those as they come along. But I'd like to jump in and kind of ask a specific question. I know that you mentioned, hey, coming on this podcast was a fear thing that you had to face and with some faith. What is an example of another situation here recently in your life where fear was possibly paralyzing you and you successfully turned to faith and walked courageously into that fear?
Yeah, I mean, one that I can share that it's been an ongoing fear that I've been navigating for 3 years, has been separating from my husband, and doing it lovingly as we share small children. I mean, it's been a complete act of faith where it's someone that I care about deeply, but my inner truth and my heart told me that this is what's best for me. And this is what I need to do. This is what my higher power is guiding me to do, even though it felt completely misaligned with my culture, my identity, what I felt was good for everyone. And it's been a complete act of faith and it's been a complete miracle because when I showed up, honestly, was able to first be honest with myself about that truth, then be honest with him, allow him to have his feelings, to have his emotions, and then learning to reconfigure our family in a way that works for all of us has been a 3-year journey of just faith. That, you know, no matter how much fear or pain or disappointment or anger or resentment that comes up, that my faith will, you know, be allowed to shine and that it will meet a greater good. And it's been a miracle for me to be able to grow in that way, but also for our entire family to see the miracle of our own recoveries as individuals, and then to be able to show up like that for our children and for our extended family to see us, you know, not separate in a way of what we thought. You know, my fear was like divorce is like the worst thing that you could do. It's like you're breaking up a family, you're hurting people, the kids are going to be ruined forever. That was my fear. And when I was able to like hand that over and be like, this is it, higher power is able to be like, okay, we're going to make this a miracle for you and your families and for your entire like extended family.
Thank you for sharing that. You know, many people come into the rooms of recovery desperate to save a marriage, save a family relationship. And maybe that's what you came in to do. I don't know. But how have you held on to peace in that as your marriage, your family, a nuclear family has actually split or is splitting in this process? How do you maintain the peace in that? And maybe how does your husband or ex-husband also experience that?
yeah, that's been the miracle of it. It's the paradox, the thing that like my rational mind cannot understand. But the more that we're separate and autonomous, and I'm, losing my codependent ways, and I've practiced my program, there's greater love, there's greater honesty, there's more responsible actions where we're on our sides of the streets. It's clear, and we're more loving. So that's the thing that I don't need to understand, but I can just know that I'm practicing my principles in all my affairs, and I'm acting as if I was to be with someone in any relationship, how would I be? Now I'm able to be that way because I don't know, because I'm not asking for anything in return. For me, relationships as a codependent was like, I do this to get something in return. And now it's like, I'm not doing anything in return. I'm just doing it because it's the right thing to do. And then vice versa. I think it's just been a miracle in that way.
Love it. Thank you for sharing that. I think that'll be helpful and comforting to many people that are listening here. All right, a couple more questions came in from our live audience. This one's from Carol. Carol just says, I just faced one of my fears as I listened to you. What do you recommend doing after you've jumped off the cliff, after you've taken that step of courage into the darkness that you don't know what's going to come of it? What do you recommend doing then?
Thank you. Yes, I think, there's that place in between when you jump off and before you're on solid ground. That's like where the miracle happens, where you don't know. And for me, that unknown can be a really scary place. And at the same time, if I'm continuing, I think that's the place that requires the most faith, the most trust, and also the most creativity, where it's a blank canvas. It can go in so many ways. So where I can be more honest about what truly is my heart saying or wanting in this moment, and just really being honest with my higher power. Those are those special opportunities where like you can really make that transformational change in your life. There's not that many of those opportunities. And so when they come, I think there is as much fear. And usually I think it's like, I think of like my children were born. There were times where it's like, I never had so much love, or like this change in like the amount of love I felt. But then there was like equal amount of fear. So it seems like it's always those moments that have that much fear is where you need like that infinite amount of faith as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a book, and I can't remember what the book is or who. I think it was Anne Lamott. Maybe it was Bird by Bird, Anne Lamott. If not, I'll correct that in the show notes if we need to. But she said something to the effect that, fear is always with me. As I'm driving my car of life down the road, fear is always with me. But she has made the decision, fear, you can stay with me. You can stay in the passenger seat, but you will never, ever drive, and you will never touch the radio or the heater or the air conditioner in the car. You are there in the passenger seat for the ride, but you have zero control. And when I heard that, it just brought so much clarity. The imagery was so powerful. Does that kind of resonate with you? Is there anything that you would like to riff off of that thought and build on?
I love that. I love that image. It's like, yes, faith is in charge. Faith is in the driver's seat. That's the power. And that comes from my higher power. And the fear, yeah, it's, that's me alone. The fear is me alone, using my own devices, my own skills. The best of me is going to have fear. But the one that's connected to something larger than myself, the one that's driving, I love that, is with faith. And then fear is like in the back seat. I put fear in the back seat. They're not even like in the front seat anymore.
Love it. And Yeah, I love it. And Aaron, thank you. Aaron from our live audience corrected me. And this is right. It was Elizabeth Gilbert said it in Big Magic. That's where it was from. And it was very powerful in my life. So excellent. Thank you. Okay, next question comes in from Sarah. Sarah says, "My recovery angel, Priya, I love you. If you haven't shared about it yet, would you be willing to share about how sponsoring others has helped you grow?" And then here's questions. What are some fears you've overcome in that part of your recovery in sponsoring? Was there a time when you didn't feel like sponsoring or didn't believe you could sponsor someone?
Sponsoring, thank you, Sarah, has been a great part of my recovery. And it's one of those magical things about this 12-step program where it's necessary. And that's what my fellowship really taught me. And I'm grateful for my fellowship for that. That you have to sponsor. Like that's step 12. You can't do the 11-step program. And so 100% at first I thought I don't have enough. It's that I don't have enough to do XYZ that prevented me. And by just doing it anyways, it's that same just do it anyways, act as if you do. For me, that's what worked. Um, and and then just seeing that by doing it, I learn each time that I sponsor someone, whether it goes, well or not isn't really the way that you can say sponsorship is. It's more, does it continue? Does it end? Does it change? But yeah, I think at first I thought it was dependent on how or what happens, but I realized I don't know. That's the beauty of this program. All I need to be able to do is share what my sponsor did with me. There's not really more that I need to do. I need to come with an open mind. I need to listen, and I need to learn how to really be helpful without asking for anything in return, and be really direct about what I need to support someone. Like simple things like asking them, how can I support you? What would be helpful to you? These were things that were not in my vocabulary when I was helping like people in my family. It was like, I know what to do or say nothing. And so learning how to support people without doing anything is like the biggest gift of sponsoring.
Love it. Thank you so much, Priya. And on that note, and I'll just share a little bit of my own experience with this. In sponsoring others, I've sponsored people in a lot of different ways. And sometimes I worry, hey, is this the quote unquote right way? Am I going to mess this person up worse than they already are? Well, probably not. But I have recently started working, sponsoring and working the steps in a way that's been really helpful to me. And actually it's, in the Spiritual Gangsters Fellowship, and in that, you guys do a monthly workshop, a 12 steps in 4 hours workshop that basically walks people through, hey, this is a way to sponsor that it's laid out in black and white and really simple and easy. And that's coming up this Sunday. And I'll put a link to how people can get involved in that and attend this Sunday. But is there anything that you'd like to talk about on that? We're doing a little bit of a plug here, but what's your experience with that system, that setup?
Yeah, that's the way that I sponsor. It's through the workbook, that the 4-hour workshop workbook. It's how I was sponsored first. I have done the steps. I am doing them also in a different manner, but that was my intro into this 12 steps. So I'm super grateful for it. And it's provided me with the tools and the ability to continuously work the steps. And so my experience has been that it's been a gift. It's been God sent. It's been very easy to do, and it allows me to connect with people of all addictions and afflictions, because it helps me see that there's no difference between what program I'm in terms of the solution. It's a spiritual malady that requires a spiritual solution. And that simplicity has helped me relate to, as an Al-anon, it's more, the people in my life I find I can relate to, where before it was like, oh, I can't relate to you. Your problem, I don't understand. My problem is fixing. So now I really feel, because of this specific program, I have a lot more compassion and understanding.
Yeah, I love that. And that's kind of the idea behind RECO12 is, all addictions and afflictions come from a very similar place. The path we walk, no matter what our drug of choice, our behavior of choice, or whatever of choice happens to be that numbs that pain, is very similar. And the solution seems to be very similar. So love it. We are about ready to close down, but before we close out here, Priya, do you have any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share with us?
I think just gratitude. That's what comes to mind right now is, it's count my blessings. That seems to be something that, that's just one of those hard truths that you just need to know. And I need to hear over and over again. Gratitude.
Thank you so much. And that has been a theme in my life. And I also practice two-way prayer. And recently that was some guidance I got, was practice rigorous gratitude. And I'd never, I've heard rigorous honesty and rigorous lots of other things, but never rigorous gratitude. And that was something that really has affected me a lot in my life recently. So thank you for bringing that up. Thank you, Priya, for your amazing share. It was a great RECO12 weekly speaker meeting. If we didn't get to any questions that you may have, if you have other questions as our live audience or as our podcast audience, or if you were just stunned and thought, man, I just had an amazing insight, please consider recording that insight through the RECO12 shares link that I've got in the chat and I'll put in the show notes. And also join in our WhatsApp community, our Facebook community. That information is also in the chat and in the show notes. And come back next week for next week's speaker. Next week, we'll be hearing from another RECO12 first-time speaker. His name is Buddy C. And Buddy will be speaking on the concept of powerless but not hopeless. And it should be a really good one. If you have not yet rated and reviewed RECO12 in Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, please go do so now. It's a great way to work your 12-step and a great way to help us get that message out to more people because it makes this podcast more visible to others. All right. Now let's launch off into the rest of our day with the resentment prayer from page 552 of the Big Book. Priya, would you like to do that? Do that reading and that prayer?
Sure. Let me just turn to that page. Okay. If you have a resentment you want to be free of, if you will pray for that person or that thing you resent, you will be free. If you will ask in prayer for everything you want for yourself to be given to them, you will be free. Ask for their health, their prosperity, their happiness, and you will be free. Even when you don't really want it for them, and your prayers are only words, and you don't mean it, go ahead and do it anyways. Do it every day for 2 weeks, and you will find you have come to mean it and to want it for them. And you will realize that where you used to feel bitterness and resentment and hatred, you now feel compassionate understanding and love.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us. Everybody, there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find God now. Keep coming back. Let's trudge this road of happy destiny together.
Standing still a moment, carving out this time, reflecting on the landscape of this life of mine. Peaks too high to conquer, streams too wide to cross, troughs too deep to walk through without incurring loss. Yet here I am, still standing tall, despite the rough terrain. One like me survived the storms and walked through wind and rain. Still standing, I will fight the good fight, still searching for glimmers of light, feet still on the ground. I can still be found, standing still.
know I still can fly. I may not soar unfettered, I may not rise too high.
Recorded in the book of life and bind it with the seal